The year was far in the future, when humanity had long since left Earth behind and scattered across the stars. Worlds once alien and cold now bore human cities. Planets that had never seen fire or industry now glowed with the lights of civilization. Humanity was no longer bound to a single home, but their presence was always noticed. Some alien empires traded with them, some ignored them, and many feared them quietly in the shadows of their own borders. Few dared to provoke them openly. Until now, on the edge of human space, orbiting a quiet yellow star, sat a colony world called Orpheon. It was not remarkable, just another settlement of miners, engineers, and families carving out a life far from the crowded core worlds. Its defenses were minimal, its fleet a handful of old patrol ships. To most alien powers, Orpheon was unimportant, not worth a second glance. But to the Virak Dominion, an empire of cruel precision and burning ambition, it looked like prey. That night, the stars above Orpheon shifted. At first, no one noticed. A faint flicker in the sky, a glimmer of light too steady for natural starlight. But then the colony's long-range scanners began to scream warnings. Objects, hundreds of them, were dropping out of hyperspace, blotting out constellations as they aligned in a vast formation. The alien armada had arrived. They were unlike anything the colonists had ever seen. Ships bristling with weapons, hulls shimmering with an oily, shifting light, like shadows wrapped around steel. The smallest of them was larger than any human cruiser stationed nearby. And at their center, dominating the void, was a dreadnought the size of a mountain, its silhouette stretching across the starscape like a predator blotting out the moon. Fear spread across the colony like wildfire. Families rushed into shelters. Soldiers scrambled to their stations, their hearts pounding with the knowledge that no weapon on Orpheon could possibly hold back such a fleet. The governor called Earth, but Earth was far away. Even at the speed of light, help would take too long to arrive. And then, across every frequency, every channel, came the voice. It was deep and echoing, filtered through alien machinery, but the menace was clay. Humans of Orpheon, you are surrounded. Surrender your world. Swear loyalty to the Dominion. Or be destroyed. Silence fell over the colony command room. Officers stayed at one another. Some whispered prayers. The governor's hands trembled on the console. No one dared to answer. The alien voice came again, harsher, impatient. This is your final warning. Kneel or burn. But instead of surrender, instead of fear, the humans did something strange. In the center of the command room, a technician turned slowly to the governor and asked in a quiet voice, "Do we send it?" The governor hesitated only a second, then nodded once. "Send it." And so, across the cold emptiness of space, the humans transmitted a single signal. It was not long. It was not loud. It carried no plea for mercy, no terms of surrender, not even a cry for help. Just a short, coded message aimed toward Earth. The alien leader laughed when his officers reported it. "Pathetic," he said, his dark eyes gleaming with contempt. "They send for help, but their fleets are days away. By the time Earth hears them, this colony will already be ash and rubble." He leaned back in his throne-like chair aboard the dreadnought, already imagining the easy victory. Another world consumed by the Dominion. Another lesson to the galaxy that resistance was futile. But then something stirred. Far from Orpheon, in the depths of human space, a warning light flickered to life. Old machines, buried in silence for years, powered up with a low, ominous hum. A relay system built for war, forgotten by most civilians, spread the signal in all directions. It reached listening posts hidden in asteroid belts, secret stations cloaked near black holes, and deep bunkers under barren moons. Everywhere it arrived, it was met with silence, and then with sudden, purposeful motion. Something ancient and dangerous had been called awake. Back at Orpheon, the aliens watched the colony's defenses power up. They sneered at the feeble shields, at the tiny patrol ships scrambling like insects in the shadow of their fleet. Their weapons primed, their engines burned, and the order to fire was moments away. But deep in the void, invisible to alien scanners, other ships were moving. Human ships. Old, battle-worn, built for wars long past. But they were not drifting peacefully as relics of history. They were hunting, responding to the call. Engines flared like the breath of dragons in the dark. Weapons locked into place with the finality of executioners. The aliens did not know. They did not sense what was coming. To them, Orpheon was just another weak world, another easy conquest. Yet across the colony, a strange calm began to settle over the humans. In the command center, the governor stood taller, his fear replaced with a quiet determination. The technician who had sent the signal smiled faintly, as though remembering an old legend whispered in training. They knew something the aliens did not. Humanity was never alone. Not truly. And those who came uninvited, those who raised a hand against them, often learned too late the cost of their arrogance. In the void beyond Orpheon, in the shadows of distant stars, something stirred. Something vast. Something terrible. And it was coming. The Virak Dominion had declared war on humanity. They did not yet understand the mistake they had made. The alien fleet held position above Orpheon, dark and terrible, a wall of firepower blotting out the stars. On the ground, the colony braced for death. Families huddled in bunkers. Soldiers manned defense batteries that could do little more than scratch the shields of the invaders. Everyone waited for the storm to break. It did not take long. The Virak Dominion had no patience for weakness. Their commander, a tall, armored figure whose voice carried across the dreadnought bridge like a hammer against steel, raised one clawed hand and gave the order. Begin the cleansing. Show them what defiance costs. The alien fleet moved as one. Cruisers shifted into attack formation. Carriers launched swarms of needle-like strike craft, and the dreadnought's main cannon began to glow with a light so bright it looked like a second sun rising in the void. Down on Orpheon, sirens wailed. The colony's shields, thin and outdated, flared to life, trembling under the strain as the first waves of energy bolts slammed into them. Towers shook. Ground trembled. Sparks rained across the command room as consoles overloaded. Shields at 40%, an officer cried. Another strike. The shield rippled like glass under a hammer. 20%. The governor gripped the edge of the console, jaw tight. Around him, panic swelled. They all knew the truth. The shields would not hold. The colony was minutes away from annihilation. And then, something happened. The stars behind the alien fleet twisted. A ripple, faint but growing, shimmered across the darkness like a stone cast into still water. Space itself bent, and then tore open with a blinding flash. A ship emerged. At first glance, it was unimpressive, smaller than the Virak cruisers, old scars lining its hull, paint-worn and faded from countless battles. But it carried itself with a presence the aliens did not understand, a quiet, lethal intent. It was a human warship. The Dominion commander sneered. One ship. That is their answer. Crush it. Alien cruisers swung around, weapons locking on. Swarms of fighters descended, eager to tear apart the lone vessel. The dreadnought's cannon hummed louder, preparing a shot that could vaporize a continent. But the human ship did not retreat. It did not hesitate. It moved. Like a predator, engines flared blue, and the ship darted forward with speed that belied its size. Alien targeting systems tracked it, but it twisted, dipped, and rolled in ways that defied their calculations. Their first volley of plasma fire streaked harmlessly past. The human ship answered with fire of its own. A single broadside lit up the darkness, streaks of kinetic rounds screaming across the void. They tore into an alien cruiser before its shields could fully respond. The ship detonated in a blossom of flame, debris scattering into the black. The Dominion commander froze. His sneer faltered. One of his ships, destroyed in seconds. The humans were not prey. They were hunters. The alien fleet recovered quickly, swarming the lone warship. Beams and torpedoes streaked through space, filling the void with chaos. But the human vessel moved with deadly precision, weaving through the storm, every maneuver purposeful, every counterstrike devastating. Another alien ship fell, then another. On Orpheon, hope flickered in the eyes of the colonists watching the battle unfold on their screens. Their shields still held, though barely, but all attention was fixed on the lone human ship carving a path through the impossible. In the command center, the technician whispered, "It's the Resolute. The old battleship. I thought it was mothballed years ago." The governor's lips curved into the faintest of smiles. No, it wasn't mothballed. It was waiting. Above them, the Virak fleet regrouped. Rage burned through their ranks. Their commander slammed a clawed fist into the arm of his chair. "Enough games. Destroy that ship." The dreadnought's cannon reached full charge, its lights searing the void like a miniature star. Energy built to a catastrophic level, ready to unleash a single strike that would end the battle. The Resolute turned, its battered hull gleaming in the firelight of the enemy weapons. It was alone, outnumbered 100-1, its shields crackling under fire. But still it advanced, unbroken, unafraid. The first strike had been made, and the galaxy was about to learn what it meant when humanity fought back. The void above Orpheon burned with light. Alien firepower poured from every angle, cutting through the darkness like 1,000 suns. In the middle of it, the Resolute twisted and danced, its battered hull glowing faintly with the shimmer of its shields. To the alien fleet, it looked like desperation, like a final stand. But to the humans, it was something else. It was a hunt. The Virak Dominion commander snarled from his throne-like chair aboard the dreadnought. "Close the net. Do not let it escape." His voice was sharp, his pride already wounded. Two of his cruisers lay shattered, drifting husks in the void. This was not supposed to happen. Humans were supposed to kneel, to beg. Not fight, not kill. Dozens of Dominion strike craft swarmed the Resolute, sleek, insect-like ships firing streams of molten plasma. They moved fast, surrounding the human vessel in a storm of fire. For a moment, it seemed overwhelming, until the Resolute's gun batteries came alive. Turrets spun, targeting computers hummed, and then the sky lit with a rain of tungsten shells and guided missiles. The first wave of alien fighters disintegrated instantly. The second wave tried evasive maneuvers, but the human ship predicted them, cutting through their formations with ruthless precision. Each shot was a kill. On Orpheon, the colony command center erupted with cheers. Soldiers, civilians, even the governor leaned forward as the screen showed alien craft bursting apart like sparks in a forge. "They're tearing them apart," an officer shouted, or in his voice. But the fight was far from over. 3 alien cruisers surged forward, flanking the Resolute. Their weapons locked, their shields overlapped. Together they unleashed a coordinated volley that hammered the human ship. The Resolute's shields flared bright, then dimmed dangerously. Warning klaxons screamed on its bridge. "Shields at 60%, the tactical officer reported. "Calm. Controlled. Hold course," replied the captain. His voice carried no fear. He had seen worse. Instead of retreating, the Resolute dove straight at the nearest cruiser. The aliens didn't understand, until it was too late. The human ship fired thrusters in a brutal burst, cutting across their formation with impossible speed. At point-blank range, its main guns unleashed a broadside. The alien cruisers split open like a broken shell, fire and atmosphere venting into space. The Resolute swung wide, cannons already targeting the second ship. Another burst, another kill. The Dominion commander rose from his throne, eyes wide with disbelief. How are they doing this?" A nervous officer on his bridge spoke quietly. "They fight differently, my lord. As if they know what we will do before we act." The commander struck him down with a backhand. "Silence. They are nothing but vermin. Crush them." But fear had already begun to creep into the hearts of his crew. The third cruiser tried to retreat, its engines flaring desperately. The Resolute did not let it escape. A single missile streaked across the void, piercing its hull. A heartbeat later, the ship erupted, fragments scattering like burning embers across the stars. 3 cruisers, gone. Fighter wings, shredded. And the battle had only just begun. The Dominion dreadnought, furious, powered its main cannon. Light swelled along its colossal barrel, casting shadows across the alien bridge. It prepared to fire, to erase the Resolute in one blinding strike. But before the weapon could release, The space around Orpheon rippled again. More ships emerged. Human ships. Not a fleet. Not yet. But enough. 3 destroyers, scarred and battle-worn like the Resolute, dropped into real space with engines blazing. Their arrival sent a ripple of shock through both sides of the conflict. On the ground, the colonists gasped. Reinforcements, someone cried. On the alien flagship, the commander's claws dug into the armrests of his throne. His confidence faltered. The humans had answered faster than he ever believed possible. The Resolute's captain smiled grimly on his bridge. About time, he muttered. The new arrivals immediately joined the fight, unleashing a storm of fire that tore into the Dominion formation. Alien ships faltered, their lines breaking under the sudden assault. The humans were no longer outnumbered 100 to 1. They were still outnumbered, yes, but now they were coordinated, ruthless, and unstoppable. And the galaxy's most feared predators were only beginning to show their teeth. The Dominion armada reeled under the sudden arrival of more human warships. What had begun as a show of overwhelming force was turning into something else, something the Virac had never imagined. On Orpheon, hope spread like wildfire. The people, moments from despair, now watched with wide eyes as the blackness of space lit with human firepower. The Resolute and its 3 sister ships moved like predators, coordinated and merciless. They were fewer, smaller, older, but they struck with such precision that every shot seemed to matter. The Virac commander snarled on his throne. Regroup. Crush them before they can organize. His fleet obeyed. Cruisers pulled into formation. Carriers launched new waves of fighters, and the dreadnought itself began to lumber forward, its massive hull blotting out the stars. To the Virac, this was war as they knew it. Overwhelming numbers, endless firepower. Against any other foe, it would have been enough. But the humans did not fight like other species. The destroyers flanked wide, drawing the Dominion's cruisers into pursuit. When the aliens adjusted their lines, the Resolute punched through the center, guns blazing, splitting the formation in two. 100 alien voices cried out across comms, demanding orders, colliding with one another in confusion. Then the humans did the unthinkable. They cut their engines. For a heartbeat, the Resolute and its escorts drifted in the void, appearing helpless. The Dominions seized the chance, unleashing a torrent of fire. Plasma bolts and torpedoes screamed through space, filling the dark with burning light. But at the last moment, the humans reignited their drives, flipping their ships in perfect synchrony. The enemy fire passed harmlessly through the space where they had been. And now, the humans were behind the Dominion line. Their counterattack was brutal. Kinetic rounds hammered alien hulls, punching through shields that had never faced such concentrated, precise fire. Missiles slipped between weak points in the Virac formations, striking reactor cores with deadly accuracy. 2 more cruisers exploded, then a carrier, its fighter bays torn open to the vacuum. Alien discipline faltered. Their formations shattered. Ships collided as captains panicked, desperate to evade the hunters that stalked them. On the colony's surface, the command room shook with cheers. Men and women who had been preparing for death now watched in awe. "They are winning," someone whispered. "They're actually winning." But not everyone felt relief. The governor, staring at the holomap, understood the truth. This was not just a battle. This was a message. The humans weren't simply defending Orpheon. They were reminding the galaxy who they were. On the Dominion flagship, fear spread like a sickness. Officers glanced nervously at their commander, whose face twisted with fury. "They fight like demons," one whispered before the commander silenced him with a glare. And indeed they did. Humans, born from centuries of war, raised in the shadow of extinction, carried something in their blood no empire could match, the will to survive at any cost. The counterattack raged on. In the span of minutes, the Dominion had lost nearly a third of its forward line. The dreadnought pressed forward, its sheer size and firepower a looming threat, but even its crew felt the tremor of doubt. This was not how the battle was supposed to go. The prey was not running. The prey was fighting back, and the hunters were bleeding. And deep in the darkness beyond Orpheon, more human ships were coming. The battle above Orpheon shifted. What had begun as a slaughter was turning into something else, something terrifying for the Dominion. The humans were no longer on the defensive. The Resolute led the charge, its scarred hull gleaming faintly as it cut through the Dominion line like a blade. 3 human destroyers followed close behind, darting in and out of alien fire with impossible precision. They were outnumbered, outgunned, and outmatched in size, but their every move was perfect. Calculated, ruthless. The Dominion commander barked orders across his fleet. Close ranks. Surround them. Do not let them break through. But his voice no longer carried the same iron weight. His captains hesitated. His crews faltered. They had seen too much already. Too many of their warships destroyed in seconds. Too many comrades lost. And then the humans struck. The destroyers surged forward, splitting apart like wolves encircling prey. They targeted the weak points of the Dominion formation, focusing fire on stragglers and crippling engines before their victims could even turn. The Resolute dove straight into the heart of the enemy, rolling through a storm of plasma bolts. Its gunners fired in brutal bursts, every round finding its mark. A cruiser tried to intercept it, shields glowing bright, but the Resolute's broadside tore through, ripping the alien ship open. Fire spilled into space, the wreck tumbling helplessly into Orpheon's gravity well. The Dominion formation cracked. On Orpheon, the colonists watching from the command center could hardly believe their eyes. They are winning, whispered one officer, or in his voice. But the humans knew better. They weren't just winning, they were teaching. The counterattack was not wild or desperate. It was deliberate. Every maneuver had purpose. Every strike carried a message. We are not weak. We are not prey. Alien fighters swarmed again, hundreds of them sweeping in arcs around the Resolute. They poured fire into its shields, determined to bring it down. The human ship endured the assault, then unleashed its point defense batteries. Cannons barked, lasers slashed, and the fighter wave disintegrated in seconds. In the Dominion fleet, panic spread. Their captains shouted conflicting orders. Their formations collapsed as fear gnawed at discipline. On the bridge of the Dreadnought, the commander slammed a clawed fist into his chair. Stand your ground. They are few. They cannot hold against us forever. But even he felt it. The gnawing doubt. The cold realization that his enemy fought like nothing he had ever faced. Humans did not fight for conquest. They did not fight for glory. They fought to survive. And survival had made them dangerous beyond measure. The Resolute turned sharply, engines flaring bright, and cut across the Dreadnought's bow. Its guns roared, smashing into the escort ships shielding the massive vessel. 2 more Dominion cruisers fell, their deaths lighting the void in fire. The humans pressed harder. Every Dominion death fed their momentum. Every mistake the aliens made became another opening. The battlefield, once dominated by the sheer size of the Dominion fleet, now belonged to the smaller, deadlier human ships. From Orpheon's surface, the people no longer watched in silence. They cheered. Soldiers pounded their consoles. Civilians embraced one another, tears streaming down their faces. Their despair was gone, replaced by something fiercer, pride. The Virak Dominion had come expecting easy prey. Instead, they had awakened the hunters. And the hunters were not finished. The Dominion fleet was unraveling. Where once their armada had seemed like an iron wall, now it looked like a scattering of broken blades. Human ships wove between them like wolves among frightened herds, striking with precision, retreating before a counterstrike could land, then circling back to kill again. On the surface of Orpheon, the colonists watched in silence at first. The cheers from before had faded, not from fear, but from awe. They had seen human ships fight before. Yes, patrols, escorts. But this was different. This was war, and they were seeing what humanity truly was when pushed to the edge. In the Dominion fleet, whispers spread. They're everywhere. They know our moves before we make them. This is not possible. Panic laced every channel. The Dominion commander roared for silence, but even his own officers avoided his gaze. Fear had begun to eat away at their discipline, and once fear takes root, it spreads faster than fire. The commander's second-in-command leaned closer. Perhaps we should pull back, regroup, bring reinforcements. Coward, the commander snapped, his clawed hand tightening around the edge of his chair. We are the Dominion. We do not retreat from vermin. But even as he spoke, another of his cruisers went dark, ripped apart by a coordinated strike from two human destroyers. The humans fought with a strange, unnerving rhythm. They anticipated every reaction, every counter. To the Dominion, it was as if the humans were not merely fighting, they were hunting. On one Dominion vessel, young gunners trembled at their stations. One muttered, "They don't fight like others. They fight like us. No, worse than us." The officer beside him hissed for silence, but the words had already taken root. The fear grew. The humans pressed harder. The Resolute cut a line through the center, its guns thundering. Two destroyers struck from the flanks, while the third vanished briefly from sensors before reappearing behind an enemy carrier, firing a full missile spread. The carrier didn't even have time to raise shield before it exploded, taking half its fighter wings with it. The Dominion lines buckled. Ships broke formation. Captains argued over comms. Some tried to regroup around the dreadnought. Others fled into the darkness. And still the humans came. The colony command center filled with stunned silence. The governor leaned forward, eyes fixed on the tactical display. "Do you see it?" he whispered. "They are not just fighting to win. They are fighting to terrify." The technician beside him nodded slowly. "They want the Dominion to remember this. To never try again." The governor's lips pressed into a thin line. "Good." On the Dominion flagship, the commander finally saw what his officers already knew. This was no simple skirmish. This was a disaster. His claws dug into his throne. His pride burned hotter than his fear. But he could not deny it. The humans were dismantling his fleet. The dreadnought shook violently as enemy fire glanced its shields. Warnings blared across the bridge. Officers scrambled, their voices shrill with panic. The commander rose to his feet, towering over them all. "Enough! We are the Dominion. They cannot." But he never finished the sentence. Another cruiser exploded outside, the fireball reflecting across the dreadnought's viewports. Gasps filled the bridge. And in that silence, the whispers returned. "Demons," one crewman muttered. "They fight like demons." Others nodded, too afraid to speak louder but unable to deny the truth. The humans were no longer seen as prey. There was something else, something monstrous. Fear had taken hold of the Dominion. And fear, once planted, was the sharpest weapon humanity had ever wielded. The Dominion dreadnought loomed over the battlefield, a titan among ruins. Around it, broken cruisers burned, fighters drifted, and the remains of what was once an invincible fleet scattered like ash on the wind. Yet still, the great warship advanced. Its colossal main cannon glowed brighter than a sun, charging for one devastating strike. The Dominion commander clung to this weapon like a drowning man to driftwood. One shot, he told himself. One shot would turn the tide, obliterate the Resolute, and break the human spirit. But the humans were not afraid. On the bridge of the Resolute, the captain stood calm as the tactical officer reported. "The dreadnought's cannon is reaching critical charge. Estimated impact in 40 seconds. The captain did not flinch. "Maintain course." The bridge crew obeyed. No panic, no hesitation. Their ship had been battered, scarred, pushed to the brink, but not broken. They trusted something the aliens could not understand. Because this fight was not yet at its true climax. Far from Orpheon, hidden in the cold shadows of space, the rest of the signal had been answered. Humanity had not sent its full fleet. It had sent something else. Something the galaxy had not seen in generations. The void rippled. At first it was subtle, a faint distortion, a tremor across senses. Then, with a deafening boom that shook every ship in the system, the shadows split. Space bent and tore open, and through the breach emerged a vessel unlike any the Dominion had ever faced. It was massive, larger than cities, a mobile fortress forged for war. Its hull was layered with black steel, bristling with weapons, engines burning with the light of 1,000 suns. It dwarfed even the dreadnought, casting its shadow across Orpheon like an omen. The Leviathan. Gasps filled the human command center on Orpheon. Soldiers stood from their seats, staring at the display with wide eyes. Civilians in bunkers whispered prayers. The technician who had sent the signal smiled through tears. The Dominion fleet froze. Even the Dreadnought's bridge fell silent. Officers who moments ago screamed orders now trembled in disbelief. The commander's mouth opened, but no words came. His pride shattered under the sheer presence of what loomed before them. The Leviathan spoke, not with words, but with action. Its forward batteries unleashed their fury. Dozens of cannons lit the void, their firepower dwarfing everything seen so far. Beams of energy tore through space, ripping Dominion ships apart as if they were paper. One salvo, and 4 cruisers were gone. A second, and the remnants of the carrier wing disintegrated. The Dreadnought fired its main cannon, desperate, defiant. The blast streaked toward the Leviathan, burning brighter than a star. For a moment, the colonists watching from Orpheon held their breath. And then the Leviathan's shields flared, absorbing the shot. The energy dissipated harmlessly into the void. The Dreadnought's bridge fell into silence. Officers stared at their commander with wide, horrified eyes. Their greatest weapon had meant nothing. The Leviathan answered with one final strike. A single beam, brighter and sharper than all the rest, lanced forward. It pierced the Dreadnought from bow to stern. For a heartbeat, the massive warship held together. Then it split apart, exploding in a storm of fire and debris that lit the entire battlefield. The Dominion fleet broke. What ships remained scattered in every direction, fleeing without order, without dignity. Their discipline was gone. Their courage was gone. And their empire would never forget the sight of what had just destroyed them. The humans did not pursue. The Leviathan held position, its guns cooling, its silhouette looming over the ruins of the once proud armada. On Orpheon, silence reigned for a long moment. Then the colony erupted with cheers, cries, and tears of relief. They had been minutes from annihilation. Now, they had witnessed a miracle of survival and a warning to the galaxy. The Dominion had declared war, but it was humanity who had delivered the final blow. The battlefield above Orpheon lay silent at last. Where once the Dominion armada had stretched across the stars, only wreckage remained, burning husks drifting in the void, their firelight fading into the cold. The Resolute and its escorts held position near the colony, scarred but unbroken. And looming above all, the Leviathan hung like a shadow of judgment, its vast hull blotting out the heavens. The humans had not pursued the fleeing ships. They didn't need to. On the Dominion flagship, or what was left of its scattered fleet, a transmission went out, broken, desperate, its tone stripped of arrogance. We surrender. Do not follow us. Do not come for us. The Dominion yields. The message was received across the battlefield, echoed, and carried away on the networks of space. It would travel farther than Orpheon, farther than human territory. It would reach other empires, other powers, other watching eyes. And with it, a new truth would spread. On Orpheon, the colony erupted in celebration. Civilians poured out of bunkers, shouting, crying, embracing one another. Soldiers pounded their fists against tables and walls in victory. For a people who had been minutes from annihilation, survival felt like a miracle. In the command center, the governor stood silently, watching the displays of debris scatter across the system. His face was unreadable, but his eyes were sharp. He understood better than most. This was not the end. This was the beginning. The technician who had sent the signal stood beside him, voice trembling. Do you think they'll come back? The governor's jaw tightened. No, not soon. They'll tell stories now. They'll spread their fear, and fear will keep them away longer than any fleet ever could. Above them, the Leviathan slowly turned. Its engines flared, and without a word, the colossal warship vanished back into the void, leaving only silence in its wake. The Resolute and the smaller ships followed, slipping back into the shadows from which they had come. They were not conquerors. They were not occupiers. They were guardians, called only when humanity was threatened. Across the galaxy, whispers began to spread. Stories of Orpheon. Tales of a tiny colony that stood against an empire. Rumors of human warships that fought like demons. Of a fortress ship that swallowed a dreadnought's fire and destroyed it with a single strike. In taverns, in barracks, in council halls of alien worlds, the words passed from mouth to mouth. Do not fight the humans. Do not provoke them. They are few in number, but they are death in battle. The Dominion had declared war, but it was a Dominion that would spend centuries regretting it.